The funniest man in the world was dying inside, and nobody saw it coming. Not his friends, not his family, not the millions of people who laughed until they cried watching him perform. Robin Williams spent decades giving the world something it desperately needed: joy, laughter, the feeling that everything was going to be okay. And while the world was receiving all of that from him, something inside him was slowly and quietly falling apart. Today we are going to understand why, not just as a story about one man, but as a window into something that psychology has been trying to explain for a very long time: why the people who give the most light are sometimes living in the deepest darkness, and what that darkness can teach all of us about the mind, about pain, and about the extraordinary strength it takes to keep going when nobody around you knows that you are struggling. Robin Williams was born in 1951 in Chicago. From the very beginning, the people around him noticed something unusual. He was extraordinarily funny, not just playful or entertaining in the way that many children are, but genuinely, remarkably, almost frighteningly funny. He could become anyone. He could shift voices, characters, and emotional registers in a fraction of a second. His mind moved faster than most people could follow, and from early on, he used that ability to do one very specific thing: to make people around him feel good, to dissolve tension, to turn difficult moments into laughter, to make sure that wherever he was, the emotional temperature of the room was something he could control. Psychologists who study the development of humor in childhood have identified something important about children who become extraordinarily funny at a young age. In many cases, the humor is not simply a natural gift that emerged from nowhere. It is a response, a coping mechanism, a way of managing an environment that felt unpredictable or emotionally unsafe. When a child learns that making people laugh reliably produces warmth, approval, and connection, the brain begins to wire itself around that discovery. Humor becomes the primary tool for navigating the world, for managing relationships, for ensuring that the people around you stay close and stay positive. Robin Williams grew up in a large house with parents who were frequently absent. His father was a serious and emotionally distant man. His mother was often away, and young Robin, alone in that large house, developed an inner world of characters and voices and comedy that became both his refuge and eventually his greatest gift to the world. But here is what psychology understands about coping mechanisms that the world rarely talks about. They work. They genuinely work. The child who learns to use humor to manage emotional pain is not simply performing. They are solving a real problem with a real tool. The laughter they generate is real. The connection it creates is real. The relief it provides in difficult moments is real. The problem is not that the tool does not work. The problem is that over time, the tool becomes a mask. The person who has spent years generating joy for others gradually loses the ability to simply be in pain without immediately transforming that pain into something more acceptable, more entertaining, more useful to the people around them. They forget or never learn how to simply feel bad without doing something with it, and that forgetting carries an enormous psychological cost. Robin Williams became the most electrifying live performer of his generation. His stand-up comedy was unlike anything anyone had seen before. He did not tell jokes in the conventional sense. He improvised entire worlds, entire characters, entire emotional landscapes, in real time, at a speed that left audiences breathless. He was a force of nature on stage, and off stage. Everyone who knew him described the same thing. He was the same way in a room of 2 people as he was in a room of 2,000. Always on, always performing, always giving, always making sure that the emotional experience of the people around him was as good as he could possibly make it. And this is where we need to pause and understand something important, because what sounds like extraordinary generosity, and in many ways it was, also contained within it something that was quietly destroying him. There is a concept in psychology called the helper personality. It describes people whose entire sense of self-worth is built around their ability to give to others, to be useful, to be needed, to provide something that other people cannot provide for themselves. For people with this pattern, receiving is deeply uncomfortable. Being vulnerable is deeply uncomfortable. Asking for help is almost impossible, because their identity, their sense of being okay in the world, is entirely constructed around being the one who gives rather than the one who needs. Robin Williams gave for 50 years. He gave laughter. He gave performances. He gave time, energy, and emotional presence to every person he encountered, and he was extraordinarily bad at receiving, extraordinarily uncomfortable with his own need. extraordinarily skilled at hiding the moments when the performance stopped and the real man was left alone with himself. He struggled with addiction for most of his adult life, cocaine in the 1970s and early 1980s, alcohol in cycles that he fought against with genuine determination and genuine courage. He got sober, he relapsed, he got sober again. He spoke about his struggles publicly with the kind of honest self-awareness that only someone who has done serious internal work can manage. He knew what was happening to him. He understood the psychology of it better than most, and he kept fighting. He kept showing up. He kept making people laugh even when the laughter was harder to find than it had ever been before. This is the part of Robin Williams' story that gets lost in the tragedy of how it ended, the extraordinary effort, the daily choice to continue, the refusal to simply disappear into the darkness when the darkness was very real and very present. That is not weakness. That is one of the most demanding forms of courage that exists. In 2013, Robin Williams was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. He did not tell the public. He was also experiencing what he described as a kind of cognitive and emotional unraveling that he could not fully understand or explain. We know now, from the autopsy performed after his death, that he had a condition called Lewy body dementia, one of the most aggressive forms of dementia that exists, that had been affecting his brain for years before it was identified. His brain was not just struggling emotionally, it was physically deteriorating in ways that created terror, confusion, and suffering that he had no framework for understanding. His wife, Susan Schneider, later described the last year of his life as a perfect storm of neurological symptoms that made every day a new and terrifying experience for him. He was losing his mind, and he knew it, and he could not make that funny. He could not transform it into something that would make the people around him feel better. For the first time in his life, the tool that had always saved him could not reach what was happening to him. He died in August 2014, and the world grieved in a way that it rarely grieves for anyone, because Robin Williams had not simply entertained people, he had been present for them in some of the most intimate and important moments of their lives. The child who watched Aladdin, the student who watched Dead Poets Society and felt, for the first time, that their desire for something more was not foolish but sacred. The adult who watched Good Will Hunting and cried without fully understanding why. He had given something that went beyond entertainment. He had given people permission to feel things, to laugh at things, to face things, and now he was gone. But here is what his life actually teaches us about psychology and about being human. It teaches us that strength and suffering are not opposites, that the person who is carrying the most is not always the one who is visibly struggling, that the laughter of someone who has learned to use humor as armor is real laughter. It is genuine. It connects, it heals, and it is also, sometimes, a signal that we are not asking the right questions of the people we love. Are you okay is a question that someone with Robin Williams' psychology will always answer with a joke. The better question, the more important question, is one that creates enough space for the real answer to emerge without pressure. That is something we can all practice, in our friendships, in our families, in the quiet moments when someone we care about is performing a little too hard. His life also teaches us something about purpose and about the extraordinary value of continuing when continuing is hard. Robin Williams did not disappear when the addiction came back. He did not stop when the depression made every morning feel impossible. He showed up, he filmed movies, he did interviews, he made people laugh in hospital wards and on military bases and in quiet private moments that were never filmed or recorded. He chose again and again to be present for other people even when his own interior world was in crisis. That choice, repeated across decades, is the definition of something that psychology calls active resilience, not the absence of struggle, but the decision to keep moving inside it. What can we take from this into our own lives? We can take the understanding that the people around us who seem the most okay are sometimes the ones who most need us to look closer. We can take the knowledge that coping mechanisms that saved us in childhood sometimes become the very walls that isolate us in adulthood. We can take the motivation to build lives where vulnerability is not a performance but a practice, where we do not have to be the funniest or the strongest or the most giving person in the room in order to deserve the care of the people around us. And we can take from Robin Williams' extraordinary body of work the reminder that a human life lived in genuine service to the joy and the dignity of other people is one of the most meaningful things that a person can do with their time on earth. He made the world laugh, he made the world feel, He showed up for decades with everything he had and gave it freely and completely to anyone who needed it. And the psychology of that life, the complexity and the courage and the cost of it, is something worth understanding, not just as a tribute to one remarkable man, but as a mirror for all of us who are trying to figure out how to be present and genuine and strong in a world that does not always make that easy. The lesson of Robin Williams is not that the happy ones are secretly sad. The lesson is that all of us are carrying more than we show, and that the most powerful thing we can do for the people we love is to create the conditions where they do not have to perform for us, where they can simply be human, incomplete and struggling and real. That is the gift he kept trying to give the world, and it is the gift we can give each other.